similar story. Good on the surface, 169,000 jobs created. Not so good when you take a deeper look. So the unemployment rate was at a 4.5-year low, which should be really reason to celebrate, because that's practically back to the recession. But the reason it was so low is because 300,000 people stopped looking for work, so they're not counted anymore. And the U.S. Labor Department also revised down the number of jobs created in June and July. So it was a terrible summer for job creation in the States. The interesting result of that is that our dollar went up because of it nearly a cent. And just to connect the dots, that the weak U.S. jobs report means that the U.S. Central Bank, the Fed, is less likely to try to stop the stimulus they've got going on south of the border, the quantitative easing. And as a result, our dollar picked up some steam.
Now, there seems to be another setback for the Keystone XL pipeline. What's going on now?
Well, I'm sure people have heard in the news about the letter that Prime Minister Harper sent to President Obama, I think offering concessions on climate change issues. This is unrelated to that. This was a report in the Wall Street Journal talking about how U.S. refineries may no longer need the pipeline for a few reasons, and one of them is the ever-increasing amount of oil being shipped by rail. The other is that there's more oil being produced in the States and finding its way to the refineries, not having to cross the border, essentially on pipelines and through rail, just getting to the refineries. So the refineries are really throwing their muscle behind rail. They're building depots so they can accept more oil by rail. And they're just frustrated about the delays. It's been delayed longer than anyone expected. And one of the biggest refiners in the States actually told the paper that if they waited around for Washington, nothing would ever get done. Unfortunately, we continue to wait around for Washington in this country to either say yay or nay. Stephen Paget follows the pipeline industry for First Energy in Calgary.
Delay is not a neutral act. It has a negative impact on the pipeline and the shippers. By pushing it back, it almost seems as if they're hoping for the issue to go away, which has not happened at all.
So, at the moment, he thinks that Keystone XL will happen. No one really knows when, but I don't think the Canadian government is going to let it drop, hence the letter that was talked about in the news today.
And space tourism.
Yeah.
One step closer today after Virgin Galactic test flight. How close are we actually to
Are you enough of a nerd that you would spend $250,000 to go to space?
You know, I am enough of a nerd that I would pay for somebody else to go to space and tell me. It just seems dangerous. I'm a bit of
So no is the answer.
Yeah, okay, no.
It's getting closer, though, if there are people with lots of disposable income and the desire, because yesterday Virgin Galactic, which is a Richard Branson company, broke the sound barrier in a test flight in the Mojave Desert, and that's a pretty key milestone in its attempt to create this commercial spaceship. So during the test, it's called Spaceship 2, which is not very creative.
No.
But, shouldn't they? I'm sure they could come up with a better name. It was taken to 46,000 feet by a carrier aircraft and then dropped. And it flew solo for about 30 minutes and then landed in the desert. So the next step is a test flight to actual space later this year. The idea, the hope, and I don't know if it'll happen, is to have commercial flights sometime next year. And as I mentioned, $250,000, and Virgin Galactic already has accepted $80 million in deposits.
I'm intrigued by this, but I am a big nerd, but I'm also big enough of a wimp that I wouldn't be on one of these flights.
And you work for the CBC, so you probably don't have $250,000 under the couch cushions.
Well, maybe I've invested. What happened in the markets today?
TSX down 24 to 12,820. The Dow down 14 to 14,922. Nasdaq up a point to 36.60. Our dollar at 0.9 of a cent to 96.07 cents US. We had oil up a couple dollars to $110 a barrel, and gold up 13. It closed at $1,386 an ounce.
All right, thanks a lot, Tracy. Have a good night. Good weekend. Tracy Johnson with our business report, which we bring to you every day on Up to Speed at this time. Well, it is now 5:47, and the head of the Winnipeg Police Board wants to outfit officers with wearable cameras. Now that Councillor Scott Feely has introduced the motion, the Winnipeg Police Service will study it. However, Calgary Police have been wearing the cameras for the past year. Nina Vaughn is the head of community policing for the city and joins me from Calgary now. Good afternoon.
Hi, how are you?
Not bad, thanks. Wondering why the Calgary Police Service chose to adopt cameras as a policing tool.
Well, we started out with the in-car digital cameras, which are the ones in the vehicles that just point forward-facing. So what we found as part of that pilot was once the officer walks away from the vehicle, obviously you lose the video capability, you still have the audio. So then we started to explore other avenues to deal with that issue and started testing the body-worn cameras. And we've really only been testing them since November last year, so not quite a year, and made the decision that after the pilot to actually go ahead with full implementation, which will probably take us a couple of years to roll out because a lot of work that still has to be done.
What are these videos used for?
They can be used for a variety of things. They can be used to resolve complaints against officers. They can be used for court purposes, and primarily that's what we've been using them for is in court cases.
Who has access to the video recording?
In Calgary, we have 2 system administrators that actually have access to the video. And so once the officers plug in the cameras at the end of their shift, it automatically downloads to a server, and only 2 people have access to the videos on the server.
Are these videos ever shared with the public, or does the media have access?
No, not typically. I mean, we haven't had any requests that we've been able to fulfill. I know the media has asked for some of the videos, even just as examples of what we might use it for. Unfortunately, for privacy reasons, we can't be sharing that information.
Now, I understand that in Calgary, officers can choose when to record and when to keep their cameras off. Well, why not just tape all the time?
It's really just not feasible to store that much data, and really, I think for the most part, there's not many of us that want to listen to a policeman talk about the hockey game last night, or variety of other, sort of non-work related conversations that happen. So it's left, we have put some policies in place in terms of when they should be turned on. So any type of encounter involving a criminal investigation or a call for service would be typically when they'd be turned on, or any sort of offender or citizen contact that looks like it might, go in an unfortunate direction.
How have the cameras impacted the way officers do their work?
Well, I don't think they have, other than to say that I think it's reasonable to assume that knowing you're on camera changes everybody's behavior. So that includes offenders, members of the public, and police. So I think that's one of the benefits, is when everybody knows they're on tape, everybody behaves maybe a little better or a little differently than they may have otherwise. And, we've known for a long time that we're on video constantly. People pull out their cameras quite often when they see police officers interacting with a member of the public. So this just provides a different perspective, because often when you see videos, particularly on some social media sites of police interactions, you see a very small portion of the overall event, and when it's taken out of context, often it looks much worse than it actually is. So, our ability to provide the full context and additional transparency around what actually happened, I think, is really important and valuable for the police and for members of the public to see as well.
Have you noticed any change in behavior in the officers since they started wearing cameras?
I don't know that we've actually had the pilot running long enough to be able to say that. So I know that some jurisdictions in the state saw significant reductions in the number of complaints against officers, for example. But our pilot's been running for such a short period of time that I don't think it's fair to make that sort of correlation in numbers here yet.
Was there any pushback at all from the officers when you decided to go ahead with the pilot?
No, because we're not doing it. I think as long as you communicate the reasons why you're doing it, which are for all the things that I just talked about, being able to provide their side or their version or the full context of an incident rather than seeing the little snippets you often see on TV, they recognize that it's a good tool for court purposes, particularly in situations, for example, like impaired driving and situations where, I think they say, a picture tells 1,000 words, and the video, tells even more of the story than that. So I think they see the benefit of it. The only, most of the concerns that were raised during the pilot were around video quality or the wearability of the camera itself, and so we tried to address those as we went along.
The head of the Winnipeg Police Board has stated that these cameras will cost around $1,000 each. What does this program cost the Calgary Police Service?
Well, the cameras themselves that we tested were about $1,000 each, but that's not the entire cost of the program for sure. I mean, if you're going to roll it out like we are for the entire service, you have to look at the storage capability and the cost of storing all that data, the additional man hours to actually look through the data in preparation for court and download it, prepare it for court, and and block out some of the other faces in the video to protect other people's privacy. So there's a lot of other costs around actually supporting a program like this other than $1,000 a camera.
Do you feel the results justify the expense?
I think so, and I think in a time where everything is on video, I think it's important for us to be in that mix and part of that conversation as well.
What's your understanding of how often these cameras need to be replaced?
I think it really depends on. I don't have an understanding of that. I think it would depend on how often they're used, and that would all be part of the RFP process. Sort of what those warranties look like and replacements and things of that nature.
What's the response been like from the public as far as this pilot project?
I think most people support it. I think there's also been some discussion about privacy concerns, particularly when you're taping in people's homes or when other people in an incident. So, for example, when you're taping an interaction in a large crowd or in a bar and it's catching a lot of other people who really had nothing to do with the interaction. People are concerned about those types of privacy issues. So, we've looked at all those. We've done a privacy assessment. We have policy around when it's appropriate to turn it off. When it's appropriate, when we're disclosing the information, to block out other people's identities to protect them. Protect their privacy in those situations. So we certainly did consider what some of those concerns are.
What happens if a citizen asks the cop to turn the camera off?
We normally wouldn't turn it off. If we're turning it on, it's because we're lawfully placed in the execution of our duties, and we feel it's necessary to record the event. So typically we would not turn it off. I think most officers have a pretty good power of persuasion and can help people understand why we're taping it, but at the end of the day, we wouldn't turn it off.
Thank you very much for this.
You're welcome.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Nina Vaughn is the acting superintendent of community policing with Calgary Police Service. And that is where they have for a year had a pilot project where they placed cameras on their officers. The time right now is 5:56. Time for news headlines. We'll get used to wearing flip-flops in September. Environment Canada says recent Septembers are about 1.3 degrees warmer than Septembers in the 80s. And an industrial fire in St. James this morning injured one person. Fire started in a metal etching company and spread to at least 2 other businesses. Your next local CBC News is After the World at 6. Let's take one last look at the forecast for the city of Winnipeg. According to CBC meteorologist John Sauter, we have a major risk of thunderstorm this evening. We are under severe thunderstorm watch right now, as with the rest of southern Manitoba. Tonight we'll drop down to 13 degrees with a partly cloudy sky. And tomorrow we'll hit 25 with a partly cloudy sky. I guess that makes it partly sunny as well. A wind from the north at 30. Sunday we'll hit 23 with a cloudy sky and a chance for evening showers. Those showers should carry on overnight into Monday when we'll hit 22. We'll have showers for the day with a cloudy sky. Tuesday will bring us a forecast high of 23 degrees, a partly sunny sky, and we'll have some morning showers. Right now, Winnipeg, still 33 degrees out there with a partly cloudy sky, a wind from the northwest at 22 kilometers an hour.